Hello and welcome to Spirals from Jupiter. I'm your host, Kimberly Pepper. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful for you all. I have a guest today that has overcome lots and lots of obstacles. He's done a great job at it and he's been very honest about it. He's charted this on Instagram and also Facebook, although I don't follow him there because I'm hardly ever on Facebook, but on Instagram, I had definitely have seen his posts. I know that he's very inspirational and he's living his life authentically and transparently, which is something I appreciate because people don't have to share their journey with you and they put themselves at risk of being judged and other things, but he's pretty fearless about that. So I am happy to have him on and I hope you guys really enjoy this interview.
All right, everyone, this is Drew. You can find him on Instagram, Hot Soup for Real with a 4. So HOTSOUP 4, the number 4, and then real REAL. So I would just like for you to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your journey. If you could just introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Andrew Sanchez. I go by Drew. Screen name, like she said, Hot Soup for Real. So I started to make an Instagram page, a few years ago about like weight loss, starting like a journey. It's more like a food journey to take pictures of on Instagram, and then it started turning into like weight loss story and food. So over the past, maybe a couple of years on Instagram, I've been having a weight loss journey of just diet and exercise. I ended up losing 220 pounds weight with diet and exercise only, and then after that, I have an excess amount of skin. So, in words of myself, I blew up to 470 pounds, maybe at the highest 475. I lost track, but close to 500 pounds. Currently now I'm at like 250. So, and this wasn't like, an overnight thing that was going to happen. It's been like 7 to 10 years of weight loss, of failing, getting back up, failing again, being out of work or injured and not going to the gym, and just, putting all my emotions into food and alcohol and drugs too when I was younger as well. So I'm just trying to give everybody a view of, this journey is not just like myself that's going through. There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of people going through the same thing as me. It might not be weight loss, but it could be, sobriety. It could be, domestic violence dispute, or, eating disorders. I mean, it all winds in together. So that's why I kind of made a page to document my journey and share with people like Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, just to show that like people connect. I can be thousands of miles away and we might be going through the same thing. You might see a video of my breakdown of me, during my journey, during my surgery, during the process after.
Yeah, and you've been very real, which I really respect, very authentic. You haven't tried to sugarcoat it or make it out to be, this beautiful dance that it may not necessarily be. You've documented the highs and the lows, which I really, really respect, and, some things in between. But one thing that really stood out to me was the story on what kind of got you set on this journey where you were like, okay, that's it, I have to do something. Would you mind sharing that story?
Yeah. So during off and on a weight loss, I ended up burying my grandfather passing of cancer. So this really hit hard because I've been big all my life through junior high, elementary, high school after and whatnot, and then it just got excessively worse. But the day that I was burying my grandfather, in the shower, a blood vessel exploded in my leg from being obese. I have varicose veins in my legs, and I've had 6 surgeries to have the veins removed because of clot issues and, causing inflammation in my legs and sharp pain, daily use. So this vein exploded because of my obesity and the weight, because there was nowhere for that pressure to go. It literally exploded in the shower within a few hours of me carrying my grandfather's casket into the church before we were going to bury him.
Wow. Yeah, and that's just a crazy, profound story to me. And I can't imagine how overwhelmed you felt at that time.
Yeah, it was crazy because everyone in my family was freaking out. And I was freaking out, and I thought more of it was just being, like I nicked my leg coming out of the shower on something. And then I went back in the shower to look to see what anything that could have cut me, and nothing did. And then I finally, saw a specialist 9 months later at the end of the year after everything had gone on, and then, started gaining weight again. But this was like, the last straw of like, oh, you're overweight, maybe if you exercise and diet. Well, it's not that easy. I mean, it's a mental game. And when food or drugs or alcohol are your codependent of your attitude and how you feel, that's your security blanket. And that's what I used was food, drugs, and alcohol. And when you need to figure out, as I was losing weight, that I'm eating food for energy, not because it's comforting. Like, there's some meals I didn't like for weeks at a time, or I didn't have cheat meals for, half a year, 10 months. But I saw the process of myself losing weight every week and recording that, and I see how my attitude was changing. Then my outlook started changing on, instead of being depressed and, giving people the blame game or, why me type of attitude.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've just been on your journey for I don't know how long exactly, but I know that I've seen you just drop tons of weight. And actually I saw the pictures of your surgery and things like that. Could you tell everyone about that process? Because he lost all this weight himself. He didn't have gastric bypass surgery, which I don't frown upon that or anything, but I think it's a huge accomplishment that you did that. And so I guess what my question is how did you feel once you lost all that weight and you were facing this major surgery? What was going through your mind?
When I lost everything, when you set a goal like the weight that you want to be, like you're really happy with it. But and the reality is when you're taking off your shirt and you see all this excess skin from how your body stretched. I was up into a 7X shirt and like 62 to like 65-inch waist. I wear a 1X now, and I'm like at 33 to 34-inch waist. The amount of skin that got cut off, was like 8 feet and 25 pounds. The
Wow.
mental game of that, of trying to, put in perspective, like how incapacitated I was going to be out of work, that I was going to heal, 2-3 weeks. Some people surgeries, they're good, walk in 3 weeks. I wasn't a walker for months. I had tubes connected to me, and it wasn't. And I knew that I was going to have the biggest mental challenge of it because eating and dieting, is cake to this. But to be put into a situation where you need to rely on other people to help you with your daily routines, like using the restroom, taking a shower, feeding you, helping you get to the restroom and get up. Like I needed someone with me 24/7. That was the hardest part because I didn't really need anybody to help me like that. And then when I did and I couldn't, do my daily tasks, that was the hardest part. And the mental capacity of it, of, well, how am I going to be now? Like when I got into the car, I was smaller than when I left, smaller after the surgery. So when I sat in a car or certain, clothes that I had in my house that I was wearing just to wear around the house, it made me think and like sit there and cry sometimes because I let myself, I lost control of myself and my weight loss took over and I really didn't care about anything else. I was going to be content of being overweight and not wanting to do anything about it. I was like, I've tried and it's not working. Well, you didn't try hard enough and you gave up after you failed once. I failed many times on this journey. And every time I did, I got right back up, even if I was out for a couple weeks, months, a year, or whatnot. I never gave up. And that's the thing I tell everybody. You can't give up because you have some disappointment in your weight loss or you didn't make it sober, for like 2 weeks and you broke after like 10 days. Well, start over again. You're not going to get to the point where you want to be if you keep using cop-outs and giving up on the first time you fail. Because then after that, everything you do in life is just going to be, it's a cop-out. It's a cop-out. You're going to give one try. Well, it's not for me. Well, how many times does it take for someone to become a lawyer or a doctor or to be a mechanic or pass those exams? It's your daily life. And people don't want to. They just want to take the easy route and like, I'll give up and I'll take what's given to me. No, that's not the way it goes. I fought my ass off. Sorry for the language, but I fought off. I fought off, and I'm like getting deep into it now, but I fought off, all the failure times that I wanted to give up and just like, hey, screw it. I'll be an overweight guy, and that's going to be me. I'm never going to be able to enjoy like going kayaking, skydiving, you know, going down the river swimming. I still don't know how to swim because I was terrified as a kid. So now, like, I went kayaking earlier last year. I went snowboarding last year for the first time, and I just turned 41 years old. So I'm like, now I'm trying to relive my life that I didn't have when I was younger. And now that my life habits have changed and, everything, my mind is clear, now I'm ready to like, okay, this is a new beginning for me because everything you hear is new. So
Right.
anything I do now is going to be like a new experience, and I want to embrace that.
And this speaks to something that I talk about a lot and definitely will continue to talk about on this podcast, which is that we all battle with the inner critic, and we all battle with this negative self-talk, right? I know I've had my battles with it. Thankfully, it's a lot. It doesn't come around as much because once you train yourself, it kind of just stops trying, which is good news. But
Right.
if you would have said, well, that's it, that's all I'm going to be, and resigned yourself, then you wouldn't be where you are now, which is, I mean, you have literally climbed metaphorical mountains, scaled them. You've scaled metaphorical mountains. So, you deserve a lot of credit for everything that you've done, everything that's gotten you to this point. That is a testament to your strength. And I have a question. Do you think that you got to that point in your life because of previous suffering? Do you think that contributed to it and was maybe shaping your view of yourself?
Most definitely. I grew up in an alcoholic and abusive household from a step-parent, a stepfather. So, like, during this weight loss journey, even when I was like, adolescence and like junior high and high school, I was ridiculed by this family member on a daily basis behind closed doors from, my mom. So there was mental abuse going on, there was physical abuse going on, intimidation, and then it put a, anger in me, like, while I was being picked on, and it was like done behind closed doors. So I didn't talk about it, but I grew up with a lot of rage and anger and resentment about it because, you're supposed to be a parent, and here they build you up to like help you out, and then they cut you down at the same time. Like, I would practice boxing with him. He was a boxing instructor at the local YMCA with myself and a bunch of other high schoolers that I went to school with. But class time was different from father time. And class time is like he wanted me to do good, but he'd also want to rip my head off in class and show me who the man of the house was. So I dealt with this, and then growing up and whatnot, like, I really didn't have much self-confidence. In reality, I really didn't. Like, I was always the fat, funny guy, and that's what, people do. They use their weight as an advantage to make people laugh and make themselves funny. And I did that throughout all my life. I still do it today. But that, that growing up from a father like that, a stepdad, ridiculing you of your weight and whatnot, it put a lot on me where I was like never going to be good enough for anybody else because I was mentally, told I wasn't shit. You'll never be shit. You'll always be the fat piece of shit you are. And that's what I grew up with. So it stuck in me. And then, for years and years later, trying to lose weight and whatnot. And then, like I said, you have an event that happens to you where, you got to change your life. And I've been, on and off, weight loss and working out since junior high. I was in wrestling, high school, and all that. And all this type of stuff will awaken you of some type of experience that you had and make you want to change your life. And then you use that as a motivation to, if you need to, like, even when I was going through this weight loss surgery and I was recovering, I knew I was going to need a counselor during the times, and I didn't get one before, but I did get one after my weight loss journey. And like, so the past year, I've already hit a year since surgery in this April that I had all the skin removed. But now seeing a counselor, that helps me see the potential in myself that I have and all this trauma that I've dealt with and how I've used it to, help others. I've showed him videos on my Instagram, Facebook page of this weight loss journey. So we're going years, 10, 20 years back in my lifetime to see what is causing me to be where I'm at right now, what made me change. how I dealt with this type of abuse and how I'm using it in today in my everyday struggle, and how I'm getting over all these things that have caused nothing but, just stress and anger in my life. And now I've gotten past those. So I'm making steps. These steps are getting bigger and bigger, and I'm right there chugging along with it. So like, there's no point of like giving up once you see like the potential in yourself, like the way you carry yourself, your attitude, how towards people,
And
or
see, I
any of
think
that.
this is
Because
really important what you're saying. You're using the word yourself. And what I think happens is, especially those of us who face trauma at an early age, is that we kind of like get lost in the world for a while, right? Because all these people have told us that we're nothing and we're never going to be anything. And of course that
right,
seeps into your subconscious. Of course it does. I mean, you'd have to be invincible for that not to happen. But what was truly beautiful about your story and about so many other people's stories who have endured trauma at an early age is that once we see ourselves, once we know who we are and actually see ourselves without hearing the inner critic that was created by trauma or hearing someone else's voice, you're like, whoa, this is me. That's not me at all. This is me. And I'm like a fierce lion, sort of like the phoenix, rising from the ashes. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing when this happens. So I'm like very, very happy that you're sharing this. And I don't know if you want to share your experience at your therapist's office. If you are down to share that, I would love to hear it too, so that other people could hear it. Because I talk a lot about energy and stuff.
right, yeah. So after the surgery, I left one job and went to another job as I was recovering. Um, I got in contact with an EMDR therapy, eye hand movement, and we focused on a lot of built up trauma like over these years. Like I would have anxiety and panic attacks when I'd see my ex stepdad in the grocery store, on the street. Like I'd start sweating, my breathing would change, my hands would start shaking. I couldn't focus. I get like nauseous, sick to my stomach because of the amount of abuse this man caused. Every time it would see me, it would just re-flare up, and it reinterpret the scene that would happen when I was getting abused. And during the time we were doing a therapy session, and I focused on the moment that that was always replaying in my mind in my house. After school, riding on an exercise bike, and my stepfather in the living room drinking away,
Hmm.
watching war movies and getting more and more agitated with the war, and then looking at me and then drinking throughout the day. So there's a scene that was physical and mental when I was trying to work out in about, I think it was about a freshman, so it had been about high school age, because I did have a car because I did drive home. And the therapist had me replay that scene in my mind over and over as he was doing his movements, and to focus on that point. And then after I thought about the scene that was always reoccurring of this abuse, we did the therapy session again. Now in the therapy session again, I put myself into a place where the scene replayed that I was, has been traumatizing me, but I was third person. I was watching myself as a high schooler and my stepdad, playing the scene over. It was happening, and I was watching like it was a TV screen. I was just watching from
Like an
behind.
out of body experience.
That's right. That's exactly right. You're out of body experience. I was sitting in my old house 20 plus years ago, watching the scene replay, and I was watching it, word for word, scene by scene, just like if you were in a DVD and you're pausing scene by scene. And during that time, as I was breathing, getting into the technique, the scene fizzled away like the Matrix, like that dot matrix where everything just pixelates, like just disappears. The scene that occurred over and over for 20 years started breaking up as I was watching it from third person. And
And
then
see, that speaks to what an illusion it was, there's a beautiful story that goes something like this guy, and this is just paraphrasing and condensing it a lot, but this guy lived in a house and he wouldn't come out of the house because he believed there was a monster outside. But one day he just got so sick of being cooped up in the house and not having his freedom that he just charged straight to this monster and it disappeared, much like what you're describing. And honestly, I
Exactly.
think that is like trauma. That is the nature of trauma, and is an illusion that can control your entire life until you charge right at it.
Yeah, and even when that happened, like I sat there for 5 minutes after, that dissolved, and then the therapist asked me and said, "What?" And I felt as that scene disappeared, the like the anger and resentment and everything, all the emotions that you could think of inside my body from the like deep of my stomach, I could feel come up, and I didn't like hysterically cry, when you're talking about something so personal, but
Hmm.
I kind of had like a little smile, just to break that sadness. And the tear on my left eye just ran down once, there was no like shaking or anything like that. But when I did and opened my mouth, all that anger and resentment that was in my stomach and just the sickness exited my body like in something I can't explain. And I even tried to explain to him because, he's a religious man as well, but I tried to explain. I said, I don't know if this is like how an exorcism happens or, someone cultural, like a shaman or anything like that. I said, but something just happened and whatever it was just exited my body. And I don't feel like I'm being brought down by any of that negative energy from somebody that's been, traumatizing me for 20 plus years. It just
And that's
exited my
amazing.
body. Yeah. And then when that happened, I'm like, I went home and I slept like 12 hours after that. It was like the best night I've ever slept. So
Yeah.
I
And
feel
the
that,
the most
yeah,
beautiful part
yeah,
of this story is that, and I'll let you tell it, but later you run into him, not even too much later, you run into him right at the store. And I would like for you
yeah,
to share that too.
yeah. I this that experience I had was December 23rd, right before Christmas Eve, and I ended up running into my ex stepdad about 3 weeks later at a local Walmart as I was getting some supplies to go on a trip. And when I was walking down the aisle, I was going to the men's section to get some clothes, and as I turned, I looked and I made eye contact with him. And usually when I would, that's when a panic attack will set in or an anxiety attack where I start sweating and hyperventilating, losing all like controls of my body because I'm freaking out what to do. That's like a
Hmm.
deer in the headlights. This time I made eye contact with him. He made eye contact with me. I looked away and I walked straight ahead, like nothing, like it was somebody that I'd never even seen before. And
It's so
that was like
profound.
the most powerful thing because the amount of stuff that this man would cause me to flip out on, it didn't have a one single effect on me when I was in the store. I went about my business and finished my day. And then I ended up running into him again when I came back from vacation. Oh, and I ran into him at another grocery store. Same thing. I made eye contact with him, walked right by him like he was a stranger. No feeling attachment, no resentment because what I was
And
dealing
you're
with, you
free.
know, yeah, exactly. I'm free. There's nothing to hold me back from what I was feeling. And once you feel that, everything like right after that, I'm like, this is my year. You can't let any like type of stuff hold you back. You have to find the root and cause of it and work on it from deep, deep, deep below. And that's what I did. And
Yeah,
I'm
and
still
you
working on
have
it
done,
today.
you're doing a great job. You're really inspiring. I know a lot of people are inspired by you because they've told me separately. So I know that for a fact. And I'm really proud of you and your journey. And I'm so anxious to see it unfold more. And what you just said, I just want to touch on a little bit because a lot of times people have a lot of power over us, right? And we don't realize it. And then we
Oh yeah,
wonder like why we're so angry. It's because we're not being our authentic selves, right? And
right.
so letting go of that is one of the most hard things on the planet, I know. But once you let go, there's this freedom that comes with it, that weight that you've always carried, it's gone. It's gone and you can be yourself and like nobody is calling the shots in your life because it's almost like a shadow figure, right? When someone hurts you and you internalize it very deeply and you carry it with
Oh
you,
yeah,
it's like a shadow figure in the distance, like, and kind of controlling you like a puppet master, because you
that's
make
right.
decisions based on fear and things. So I'm just so proud of you, honestly, just so grateful to have met you and, and watch your journey. I know I'm personally inspired by it as well. And I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time to speak to everyone.
No, I appreciate you for having me. I just want to, be able to share a part of a journey that maybe might help somebody like, that's going through some other type of stuff in their life that might not even be weight loss, might be something else, but they can connect and see that they're not alone. Like when you're overweight, or, drug addict or going through anything, any type of substance abuse or anything that's got you hold back, you want to connect with somebody and then you feel that you're at ease. Like I'm not the only person going through that. That self, love too, and acknowledging it and sharing it with people is like the best thing ever. Like I love receiving messages from people that say like I was going through this, or I watched your video and I broke down and cried, because that's the same thing I'm going. That's the connection between you and people. That's how humans interact. And like
Yeah,
I
and
like how we
love.
said about love. I grew up in this household. Narcissists and like all that toxic behavior, man, will suck the life out of you. And then when you
Yes,
find out, that you're not that person, and you're, a genuine person, you're just trying to spread, your wealth and knowledge of, and like you said, love. You have to love yourself before you can love anybody else. That's why I was like, well, now you lost all this weight. What are you gonna do? I'm like, I'm still gonna work on myself. It's not. I lost it and it's over. I'm still at it every day, and that's the
that's an
thing. I'm not
important
gonna
part.
quit. That's it.
Yeah, because people don't talk about that part because it's not just losing the weight, it's staying in that
Oh, it's the
mindset.
mental side. Yeah, it's the mental part. It's the physical. It's the spiritual side. All of it's connected. And like I really didn't realize that, you know what I mean? And then,
Yeah,
doctors nowadays just want to stick you with meds and whatnot, but sometimes you seriously have to fall flat on your butt and get yourself up and, reevaluate your life and change what you need to do. And that's what I
yep,
did.
that's why I always say that failure is, can be one of the best things to ever happen to you. It can be one of the most major catalysts in your life. So embrace it, everyone.
Right?
Embrace it. But okay, but thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you for taking the time.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Bye.